While everyone's arguing about whether they can afford a house in America right now, there are people quietly buying real homes, with yards, with garages, with neighbors who wave at you, in the Sunshine State for under $200,000. Florida. Yes, that Florida. And no, these aren't fixer-uppers falling apart in the middle of nowhere. These are actual towns with grocery stores, hospitals, and a life worth living. Stick around because number 1 is going to stop you cold.
Number 10, Blountown, Florida. Let's start somewhere most people have never even heard of. And honestly, that's exactly the point. Blountown sits in Calhoun County in the Florida Panhandle, quietly minding its own business about halfway between Tallahassee and Panama City. Population, just over 2,400 people. Median home value, according to current data, right around $117,000. Read that again. In Florida. Now, before you assume there's a catch, and yes, we'll talk about the trade-offs, let's be honest about what you actually get here. Blountown sits right along the Apalachicola River, one of the most scenic and ecologically rich waterways in the entire Southeast. Fishing is not just a hobby here, it's practically a community tradition. Kayaking, hunting, and just sitting on your porch watching the river fog roll in at sunrise, that's the texture of daily life. The town itself is small but functional. You've got local schools, a county hospital, hardware stores, and the kind of main street that reminds you what American towns used to feel like before strip malls ate everything up. Property taxes stay low, and because you're not on the coast, you're largely out of the hurricane bullseye and the brutal flood insurance premiums that come with it. The honest trade-off? Blountown is rural. There's no nightlife, no Whole Foods, no traffic. And for a lot of people over 40 who are done with the chaos of big city living, that's not a trade-off at all. That's the whole point. If you want a real house, real quiet, and a real sense of community at a price that doesn't require you to sacrifice your retirement savings, Blountown might just be the most underrated town in all of Florida. Number 9, Quincy, Florida. 30 minutes west of Tallahassee sits a town that used to be one of the wealthiest per capita communities in the entire United States, and most people have no idea that ever happened. Quincy, Florida, in Gadsden County, made its fortune through tobacco farming and, believe it or not, Coca-Cola stock. Local farmers bought shares back in the 1920s and held on for decades. Millionaires in a tiny Florida town. Wild, right? These days, Quincy is a different story, but in the best possible way for buyers. Median home values sit around the low to mid 100,000s, with a monthly mortgage estimate that some sources put at just over $1,200. That's less than most Americans pay for a one-bedroom apartment in a mediocre city. And you're in Florida, 30 minutes from a state capital with full hospitals, universities, and a real job market. The architecture in Quincy is genuinely beautiful. There are historic homes, real ones, with wraparound porches and old oak trees out front that you can pick up for prices that would make a California or New York buyer physically laugh out loud. The town has been slowly revitalizing with community events, local restaurants, and an art scene that punches well above its weight class for a community this size. The surrounding area gives you access to lakes, forests, and all the outdoor life that makes North Florida so addictive. And because you're not a beachfront community, insurance costs stay far more manageable than coastal alternatives. For buyers looking to be near city amenities without paying city prices, Quincy is one of the most intelligent buys in the entire state right now. If you're finding this useful, hit that subscribe button right now. We cover these overlooked American towns every single week, and you don't want to miss what's coming later in this list. Number 8, Palatka, Florida. Palatka doesn't get nearly enough credit, and that needs to change. Sitting along the St. Johns River in Putnam County, northeast Florida, this small city of around 11,000 people has a median home price hovering right around $190,000, with some listings coming in significantly lower than that. And what you get for that money is genuinely remarkable. The historic district in Palatka is the kind of thing that makes architecture lovers stop their cars and stare. Victorian homes, old brick storefronts, and a riverfront setting that any waterfront city in America would be proud of. The St. Johns River here is wide and slow-moving, perfect for boating and fishing. Ravine Garden State Park sits right inside city limits, a stunning natural ravine that looks like something out of a fairy tale, especially when the azaleas bloom in spring. Palatka hosts the Florida Azalea Festival every year, along with the Bostwick Blueberry Festival and the Blue Crab Festival. This isn't a ghost town surviving on memory, it's a community with genuine character and real civic pride. Residents who've moved here from larger cities consistently talk about being surprised by how much life there is in a place this affordable. The proximity to Jacksonville is a serious advantage. You're about an hour southeast, which means access to one of Florida's largest job markets, major hospitals, airports, and shopping, while paying a fraction of the price for your actual home. Healthcare retirees, remote workers, and anyone who values history and nature over nightlife will find Palatka checks more boxes than expected. It's the kind of place that grows on you fast.
Number 7, Sebring, Florida. Sebring is known to racing fans around the world because of Sebring International Raceway, home to one of the oldest and most prestigious endurance races in America. But for home buyers, Sebring is known for something else entirely: median home prices that sit right around $185,000 to $200,000 in a central Florida town with lakes, sunshine, and a lifestyle that retirees have been quietly flocking to for decades. Highlands County, where Sebring sits, is landlocked and inland, which means it dodges the worst of Florida's coastal insurance crisis. You're not staring down $6,000 annual insurance premiums here. That matters enormously when you're running the real numbers on what homeownership actually costs. The monthly payment difference between an inland town and a coastal one can genuinely be the difference between comfortable retirement and financial stress. The town is built around Lake Jackson, and that lake defines the pace of life. Morning walks along the lakefront, fishing at dusk, farmers markets on weekends. Sebring has developed a rich retiree culture with active communities, golf courses, and healthcare infrastructure that supports an older population. Highlands Regional Medical Center gives residents solid local health care without having to drive to Tampa or Orlando for routine care. What makes Sebring interesting beyond the price is the sense that it hasn't been discovered yet by the wave of buyers who drove up prices everywhere else. It's still flying under the radar, which means today's prices are the window, and smart buyers who look at real data instead of Instagram posts are already taking notice.
Number 6, Avon Park, Florida. Just 10 miles north of Sebring sits its quieter, even more affordable neighbor, Avon Park. If Sebring is starting to get on people's radar, Avon Park is still so under the radar it's practically invisible to most home buyers. Median home values here run right alongside Sebring in the low 200s, but inventory can sometimes run even lower than that. Avon Park has Lake Verona right in the middle of town, surrounded by parks and old Florida charm that feels like stepping back into a simpler version of American life. The downtown has been seeing slow but steady revitalization, with local shops, cafes, and a community college that keeps the town from feeling entirely retired. South Florida State College is based here, which brings a younger energy and supports a broader range of services than you'd expect for a town this size. The cost of living overall in Avon Park sits well below not just the Florida average, but the national average, which means every dollar of retirement income or remote work paycheck goes further here than almost anywhere else in the state. Groceries, utilities, local services, it all runs lean. What Avon Park offers that money can't manufacture is authenticity. This isn't a planned development town or a manufactured retirement community. It's an organic, old Florida town with real neighbors, church parking lots on Sunday mornings, and the kind of place where people still know each other's names. For buyers who've lived their whole lives surrounded by people who barely make eye contact, that's worth more than any amenity list.
Number 5, Arcadia, Florida. Drive south through cattle country, past orange groves and old Florida flatland, and you'll find Arcadia, the seat of DeSoto County, a town that wears its Western heritage on its sleeve and offers home prices that make careful buyers do a double take. Median values run in the low to mid 200,000s, and in a state where the statewide typical home value sits near $370,000, that gap is enormous. Arcadia is cowboy country, plain and simple. The annual All-Florida Championship Rodeo, one of the oldest in the state, draws crowds every year and gives you a real sense of what this community has always been about. This isn't manufactured Western nostalgia for tourists. It's a cattle and agriculture town with deep roots and a personality that's entirely its own. The Peace River runs just outside of town, a famous kayaking and fossil hunting destination where people have pulled up shark teeth and prehistoric bones from the riverbed for generations. If you want a Florida lifestyle built around nature rather than nightlife, Arcadia gives you swimming holes, fishing spots, and paddling routes that most Floridians driving up and down I-75 have never seen. The surrounding farmland keeps land costs low and the air genuinely clean in a way that urban dwellers forget is possible. Arcadia has its challenges: limited nightlife, a smaller job market, and the trade-offs that come with any rural town. But for the buyer who wants space, character, and a home that fits their budget without requiring a second mortgage, this town earns its place on this list. We're at the halfway point. If you haven't subscribed yet, do it now. These videos go deep on the places most real estate content completely ignores, and there's a lot more where this came from.
Number 4. Perry, Florida. Perry sits in Taylor County, right in the heart of what's called Florida's Big Bend region, where the peninsula begins to curve westward toward the Panhandle. It's one of those places that geographically sits at a crossroads, but has somehow managed to stay almost entirely off the homebuyer map. Median home values here hover right around or just under $200,000, and the town sits on or very near Gulf Coast access, which makes it genuinely remarkable on a value-per-dollar basis. Steinhatchee, a small fishing village just south of Perry, gives residents quick access to some of the best scalloping and saltwater fishing in the entire state. Florida residents drive hours to get to what Perry locals have essentially in their backyard. The Fenelaway River, the forests surrounding the area, and the old logging and turpentine heritage of the town give Perry a character that's completely distinct from anything you'll find in South or Central Florida. Perry has a hospital, decent local schools, and enough commercial infrastructure to support daily life without requiring a 2-hour drive for groceries. It's also close enough to Tallahassee, about an hour north, that bigger city resources aren't completely out of reach when you need them. What Perry offers the serious buyer is something increasingly rare in Florida: affordable prices near actual water. Coastal access without coastal pricing. The people who figured this out tend to be quiet about it, which is probably why the prices have stayed low. But that window doesn't stay open forever, and buyers with their eyes on Gulf-adjacent living at realistic prices should be looking here right now.
Number 3. Lake City, Florida. Lake City often gets called one of the most affordable cities in all of Florida, and the data backs that up consistently. Median home prices sit around $250,000, which by Florida standards is genuinely budget territory, and the overall cost of living runs about 19% below the state average. That's not a rounding error. That's real money, month after month. The name tells you everything about the geography. Lake City sits surrounded by dozens of natural lakes and springs, including the famous Echetucknee Springs State Park just down the road, a crystal-clear spring run that draws tubers and swimmers from across the southeast every summer. The Suwannee River is nearby. Osceola National Forest is nearby. For buyers who want access to outdoor recreation, North Florida's natural landscape rivals anything in the state. Columbia County, where Lake City sits, benefits from its location at the intersection of I-75 and I-10, two of Florida's most important interstates. That crossroads position means commercial activity, reasonable job access, and a logistical advantage that keeps the local economy from stagnating the way some truly rural towns can. You're also 2 hours from Jacksonville, 2 hours from Gainesville, and about 2.5 from the Tampa metro, close enough to access bigger markets without paying for them. Lake City has hospitals, chain retailers, local restaurants, and a community that's genuinely proud of where it lives. It's not glamorous, and nobody's making Instagram reels about how trendy it is, but that's precisely why the prices haven't been driven up. For buyers who want livability at a real price, this is one of the most practical choices on this entire list.
Number 2. Inverness, Florida. Inverness might be the most charming town on this list, and it's one that's starting to build a quiet reputation among buyers who do their research. Sitting in Citrus County on the Nature Coast, about 90 minutes north of Tampa, Inverness has median home values in the low to mid-200s, significantly below the statewide average and dramatically below anything in the Tampa Bay metro that surrounds it as a market anchor. The town sits on Tazala Apopka Lake, a broad, shallow chain of lakes that gives residents direct access to water without the coastal price tag. Boating, fishing, and kayaking are essentially everyday activities here. The Withlacoochee State Trail, one of the longest paved recreational trails in the entire state, runs right through town, making it a genuine destination for cyclists and walkers who want infrastructure built into their daily life rather than having to drive somewhere to exercise. Downtown Inverness is genuinely lovely. The old courthouse, the pedestrian-friendly main streets, the local restaurants and coffee shops, it has the bones of a real town that people built with permanence in mind. It's small enough that you know your neighbors, but large enough that it doesn't feel isolated. Citrus County has a strong healthcare infrastructure relative to its size, which matters enormously for buyers in the 40-plus age range thinking about the next 20 or 30 years. And because you're on the nature coast rather than the open Gulf, insurance costs, while not trivial, stay far more manageable than beach communities. Inverness consistently ranks as one of the best retirement value towns in Florida, and the buyers arriving here consistently say the same thing. They can't believe this place isn't more well-known.
Number 1. Homosasa Springs, Florida. And here we are, number 1. Homosasa Springs sits in Citrus County, just south of Inverness along the Nature Coast, and it is, without question, one of the most undervalued communities in the entire state of Florida. Home prices here run well below the statewide median, with many homes available in the $180,000 to $230,000 range, in a setting that looks like it was designed by someone who wanted to make people forget why they ever stressed about anything. The Homosasa River runs clear and cold, fed by springs that maintain a constant 72-degree temperature year-round. That means manatees, hundreds of them, gathering in the warm spring waters every winter in numbers that make the area one of the premier manatee viewing destinations in North America. You can kayak with them, you can snorkel alongside them, you don't have to book a tour or buy a ticket, you just live there and that's the backdrop of your life. Homosasa Springs Wildlife State Park sits right in the park with native Florida animals and natural habitats, and the area draws nature tourism that keeps local businesses healthy without turning the town into an overcrowded resort. It's a fine line, and Homosasa Springs has walked it better than almost anywhere in the state. The community has a strong arts presence, excellent seafood restaurants right on the water, and that rare combination of natural beauty and affordable real estate that most buyers assume doesn't exist in Florida anymore. Remote workers, retirees, and anyone who spent their life working hard and now wants something genuinely beautiful to show for it, Homosasa Springs is the answer they didn't know they were looking for. This one is real. These prices are real. And the clock is ticking.
Florida still has places that feel like a secret. Towns where home prices are low not because something's broken, but because the rest of the country just hasn't looked hard enough. Blountown, Quincy in the Panhandle, Palatka along the river, Sebring and Avon Park in the Highlands, Arcadia in Cattle Country, Perry on the edge of the Gulf, Lake City at the crossroads, Inverness on the Nature Coast, and Homosasa Springs where manatees swim past your backyard. These aren't consolation prizes, they're options, real ones, for anyone willing to trade brand recognition for genuine value. The buyers making the smartest moves right now aren't chasing the same zip codes everyone else is. They're doing the research, looking at the actual numbers, and planting roots where the price is right and the life is good. You now know where to start looking. That's the list. 10 Florida towns where your money still means something. If you learned something today, drop it in the comments. Which town surprised you the most? Share this video with someone who's been told they can't afford a home in Florida, because this list just proved otherwise. And if you haven't subscribed yet, hit that button right now. We find these hidden towns, these overlooked places, these real opportunities that nobody's talking about every single week. We'll see you in the next one.